वचनं मधुरं
मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरम्
वचनं मधुरं चरितं मधुरं वसनं मधुरं वलितं मधुरं चलितं मधुरं भ्रमितं मधुरम्
मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरम्
वेणुर्मधुरो रेणुर्मधुराः पाणिर्मधुराः पादौ मधुरौ नृत्यं मधुरं सख्यं मधुरम्
मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरम्
गीतं मधुरं पीतं मधुरं भुक्तं मधुरं सुप्तं मधुरं रूपं मधुरं तिलकं मधुरम्
मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरम्
हरणं मधुरं तरणं मधुरं हरणं मधुरं स्मरणं मधुरं वमितं मधुरं शमितं मधुरम्
मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरम्
कुञ्जा मधुरा माला मधुरा यमुना मधुरा वीथी मधुरा सलिलं मधुरं कमलं मधुरम्
मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरम्
गोपी मधुरा लीला मधुरा युक्तं मधुरं मुक्तं मधुरं दृष्टं मधुरं शिष्टं मधुरम्
मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरम्
गोपा मधुरा गावो मधुरा यष्टिर्मधुरा सृष्टिर्मधुरा दलितं मधुरं फलितं मधुरम्
मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपतेरखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपते
ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः।
ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः।
श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता
श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता
अथ पञ्चमोऽध्यायः।
अथ पञ्चमोऽध्यायः।
अर्जुन उवाच
अर्जुन उवाच
सन्न्यासं कर्मणां कृष्ण
सन्न्यासं कर्मणां कृष्ण
पुनर्योगं च शंससि
पुनर्योगं च शंससि
यच्छ्रेय एतयोरेकन्
यच्छ्रेय एतयोरेकन्
तन्मे ब्रूहि सुनिश्चितम्।
तन्मे ब्रूहि सुनिश्चितम्।
श्रीभगवानुवाच
श्रीभगवानुवाच
सन्न्यासः कर्मयोगश्च
सन्न्यासः कर्मयोगश्च
निःश्रेयसकरावुभौ
निःश्रेयसकरावुभौ
तयोस्तु कर्मसन्न्यासात्
तयोस्तु कर्मसन्न्यासात्
कर्मयोगो विशिष्यते।
कर्मयोगो विशिष्यते।
ज्ञेयः स नित्यसन्न्यासी
ज्ञेयः स नित्यसन्न्यासी
यो न द्वेष्टि न काङ्क्षति
यो न द्वेष्टि न काङ्क्षति
निर्द्वन्द्वो हि महाबाहो
निर्द्वन्द्वो हि महाबाहो
सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते
सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते।
साङ्ख्ययोगौ पृथक् बालाः
साङ्ख्ययोगौ पृथक् बालाः
प्रवदन्ति न पण्डिताः
प्रवदन्ति न पण्डिताः
एकमप्यास्थितः सम्यग्
एकमप्यास्थितः सम्यक्
उभयोर्विन्दते फलम्
उभयोर्विन्दते फलम्
यत् साङ्ख्यैः प्राप्यते स्थानम्
यत् साङ्ख्यैः प्राप्यते स्थानम्
तद्योगैरपि गम्यते
तद्योगैरपि गम्यते।
एकं साङ्ख्यै च योगै च
एकं साङ्ख्यै च योगै च
यः पश्यति स पश्यति
यः पश्यति स पश्यति
सन्न्यासस्तु महाबाहो
सन्न्यासस्तु महाबाहो
दुःखमाप्तुमयो गतः
दुःखमाप्तुमयो गतः
योगयुक्तो मुनिर्ब्रह्मा
योगयुक्तो मुनिर्ब्रह्मा
न चिरेणाधिगच्छति
न चिरेणाधिगच्छति
योगयुक्तो विशुद्धात्मा
योगयुक्तो विशुद्धात्मा
विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः
विजितात्मा जितेन्द्रियः
श्री गुरुचरण सरोज रज निज मनु मुकुरु सुधारी बरनौ रघुवर विमल जसु जोदायक फलचारी बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरौ पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरहु कलेस विकार। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीसतिहु लोक उजागर रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी गोमति निवार सुमति के संगी कंचन बरन विराज सुबेसा कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे कांधे मूज जनेऊ साजे शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर राम काज करिबे को आतुर प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया राम लखन सीता मन बसिया सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे रामचंद्र के काज संवारे लाय सजीवन लखन जियाए श्री रघुबीर हरषि उर लाए रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरतहि सम भाई सहस बदन तुम रोजस गावे अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा नारद सारद सहित अहिसा जम कुबेर दिक्पाल जहाते कवि कोविद कहि सकै कहाते तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा राम मिलाय राजपद दीन्हा तुम्हरो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना जुग सहस्र जो जन पर भानु लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानू प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माही जलधि लांघि गए अचरज नाही दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हरे तेते राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज संहारो आपे तीनों लोक हांकते कांपे भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे नासै रोग हरै सब पीरा जपत निरंतर हनुमत वीरा संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे चारों जुग पर ताप तुम्हारा है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा साधु संत के तुम रखवारे असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे अष्ट सिद्धि नौ निधि के दाता असवर दीन जानकी माता राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे अंत काल रघुबर पुर जाई जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई और देवता चित्तन धरई हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलबीरा जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई छूट ही बंदी महासुख होई जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा की जय नाथ हृदय महडेरा पवन तनय संकट हरन मंगल मूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसहु सुर भूप सियावर रामचंद्र की जय पवन सुत हनुमान की जय उमापति महादेव की जय।
Jai Shri Krishna. In Zoom meeting, if you want to turn off the notification of Zoom chats, then click on the chats and then click on these three dots, turn off notifications, click on that, click on the mute option, and now chats notification will not disturb you. Jai Shri Krishna.
सच्चिदानन्दं वासुदेवं व्रजप्रियं
संस्थापकं वीरम् कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। ईश्वर भक्ति भाव से बहती संस्कारों की धारा, भारत माँ की सेवा में गीता परिवार हमारा, गीता परिवार हमारा। ईश्वर भक्ति भाव से बहती संस्कारों की धारा, भारत माँ की सेवा में गीता परिवार हमारा, गीता परिवार हमारा। संस्कृति का वैभव जग में सबसे न्यारा, जय भारत माँ, जय गीता माँ, जय भारत माँ, जय गीता माँ। भारतीय संस्कृति का वैभव जग में सबसे न्यारा, ज्ञान और विज्ञान यहीं से सबने पाया सारा, सबने पाया सारा। कुछ भूलों से हारा फिर से जीते देश हमारा, गीता परिवार हमारा, गीता परिवार हमारा।
Jai Shri Krishna. Seeking the blessings of Yogeshwara Krishna, let me, Mala Narayanan from Bangalore, at the outset bow down to Param Pujya Swami Guru Govinda Dev Giriji Maharaj. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. A warm welcome to all the sadhaks who have joined us for interpretation session of chapter 5, Karma Sannyasi Yoga. We all are really blessed to be associated with Gita Pariwar as we get to know the meanings of shlokas in weekly Vivechan Satras. Before the session starts, let me request you to pay attention to me. Let's start our session with a prayer which is considered to be an integral part of our culture, and it's an expression of our devotion. And today, Ramji Mishraji from Katni, Madhya Pradesh is reciting Prarthana. Bhaiya is a retired army personnel. Bhaiya's hobbies are reading Adhyatma books, visiting holy places, learning and giving seva in Gita Pariwar. Vaidya is a Gita Sevi in real terms as he is giving seva in different departments like co-trainer, technical assistant, group coordinator and batch coordinator. Let's invoke the blessings of Lord Krishna. Ramji Bhaiya, please.
Jai Shri Krishna Didi, Jai Shri Krishna to everybody. Vasudeva Sutan Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishna Vande Jagadgurum Shri Krishna Vande Jagadgurum.
Thank you, Bhaiya, for that soulful prayer. Now it's time for Deepa Prajwalan. Om Asato Ma Sat Gamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is an ancient Shanti mantra from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that serves as a prayer for truth, light, and immortality. It translates to lead me from untruth to truth, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Chanting this is believed to reduce stress, bring inner peace, and foster spiritual growth. Thus, this custom contains a wealth of intellectual and spiritual meaning. Today, Sri Nishaji from Calicut, Kerala is doing the honors of lighting the lamp. Didi joined Geeta Pariwar in 2024 and is giving seva as co-trainer and technical assistant and loves to cook, stitch and sing. Sri Nisha Didi, please.
निषिद्धैरप्येभिर्लुलितमकरन्दो मधुकरैः करैरिन्दोरन्तश्छुरित इव सम्भिन्नमुकुलः विधत्तां सिद्धिन्नो नयनसुभगामस्य सदसः प्रकीर्णः पुष्पाणां हरिचरणयोरञ्जलिरयम् शरदिन्दुनिभां शुभ्रां शुभ्रवस्त्रैरलङ्कृतां कलहंसकृतावासां वरदां शारदां नुमः.
Thank you, Didi, for a devotional, beautiful Deepa Prajwalan. And now our Zoom platform is ready for Vivechan. I would like to inform all the participants that you may ask questions once the Vivechan is over. Raise your hands only after the session is over, please. Please do watch Geeta Sevi program and learn the various sevas you can do. Share the link of this Vivechan to your near and dear ones. Tomorrow, new L1 batch is starting. Still, registration is possible. So if anybody is left out whom you know, you can tell them to register again. Now it's time for the most anticipated part of this session. Our speaker for the day is Vikas Vaidya ji from Pune. Vikas ji is a mechanical engineer with PGDBM. Bhaiya has traveled the world over and has an NRI and was an NRI for 12 years. He owns a small IT company. He's a multilinguistic with knowledge of Hindi, Marathi, English, Indonesian, Malaysian, and Spanish. He has been reciting all 18 chapters of Gita daily for the last 7 years or more than that. Bhaiya is a trainer for all levels and involved in trainer selection and training them. He is also involved in teaching and Vivechan of Vishnu Sahasranamam as a member of Pune Geeta Pariwar. Vikas ji also gives guidance to Geeta Vratis to prepare for Sringeri Peeth Geeta exam. Bhaiya himself has received first prize at the hands of Param Pujya Jagat Guru Shankaracharya. Today, Vikas Bhaiya is going to deal with the first part of 5th chapter, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Over to you, Vikas ji.
वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं जय श्री कृष्ण टू ऑल. पूज्य स्वामी जी के चरण कमलों में कोटि कोटि नमन. We are discussing a new adhyay today, that is the 5th adhyay, that is called Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Before we start discussing shlok by shlok, let us understand what exactly we are going to understand, what we are going to learn in this adhyay. It's good to take a summary of the entire adhyay so that we are clear as to what we are going to concentrate, focus upon when we are discussing this adhyay. So in this adhyay, Shri Krishna is being asked by Arjuna to clarify on an important question, spiritual question: which path is better? Renouncing action, that means sannyas, is better, or performing action with detachment, karma yoga, is better? Sannyas yoga is better or karma yoga is better? Then Shri Krishna explains that both the paths lead to liberation. Both paths lead to the same destination, liberation, moksha. But karma yoga, the selfless action without attachment to the results, is easier and more practical for most of the people. So this adhyay emphasizes the inner renunciation antarik sannyas. Rather than merely abandoning the worldly duties, that sannyas this Adhyaya does not recommend. It emphasizes inner renunciation. True freedom comes not from escaping the action, but from performing action with right understanding. That is what we learn in this Adhyaya. So Arjuna's question is renunciation or action, sannyas or karma. What is better? At the beginning of this Adhyaya, Arjuna expresses a confusion. In earlier teachings, Sri Krishna had spoken, because this is the fifth Adhyaya. Sri Krishna has been talking about Geeta from second Adhyaya onwards, Ashocha, Nanashocha, Sampradhyamadam Shivasre, from where he started delivering the message to Arjuna. So since then, Sri Krishna has spoken about the value of renouncing action. But he also emphasized performing one's duty selflessly. So both these aspects he has spoken. Arjuna therefore asks Sri Krishna to clearly state which of these two paths is superior. This question reflects a common spiritual dilemma. Many seekers, devotees wonder where spiritual progress requires withdrawing from the society and abandoning the worldly life, or whether it is possible to achieve spiritual realization while actively participating in daily responsibilities. Sri Krishna answers, he resolves this confusion by explaining the deeper meaning of sannyas. What is renunciation? So Krishna's answer is, both paths lead to the liberation. Sri Krishna explains that both sannyas, that means renunciation of action, and karma yoga, the selfless action, ultimately lead to the same goal, spiritual liberation, that is the moksha. However, Shri Krishna Bhagavan emphasizes that karma yoga is generally superior and easier for most of the people. Renouncing action externally while the mind is still desiring worldly results is not true renunciation. Externally you are giving up the action, but mentally you are still thinking of. That's not the renunciation. True renunciation is renouncing the attachment, not necessarily abandoning the action itself. Then Shri Krishna states that a person who performs his duties without attachment to the fruits of his action, that means karma phala, is actually a true renunciate. That means he is the true sannyasi. Even if he remains active in the society, he may have a family, he may have friends, he may be living in the society, but if he is following this principle, then he is the true sannyasi. Thus, the distinction between a monk and a householder becomes less important than the state of mind in which the actions are performed. So the state of mind is more important than where you are living. Then the nature of true renunciation and the unity of karma yoga and knowledge is also explained. Shri Krishna further explains that the paths of knowledge, that means jnana yoga, and selfless action, that means the karma yoga, ultimately lead to the same realization. A wise person understands that both paths converge in the realization of true self, our Atma, that is Atma Dhyan. Those who follow Karma Yoga gradually purify their minds through selfless service. That is the principle of Karma Yoga. As their minds become pure and free from selfish desires, they naturally develop spiritual knowledge. Thus, Karma Yoga eventually leads to Jnana only. And both paths culminate in the same spiritual truth. Shri Krishna therefore encourages Arjuna to follow Karma Yoga because it harmonizes action with spiritual wisdom. Then what is the role of selfless action? Shri Krishna teaches that the key to freedom from karma lies in acting without attachment to the fruits of action. Normally, human beings act with some expectations. If I do this karma, what will I get? Mujhe kya milne wala hai? Desire for success. They have fear of failures, attachment to the results. These expectations, they create mental agitation and bondage. However, when a person performs actions simply because they are right and necessary Without craving the results, the mind becomes peaceful and free. Such action becomes a form of worship only. Work is worship, is this worship. Krishna advises Arjuna to dedicate all actions to the divine and perform them as an offering to the divine. In this state, action no longer binds the soul. No karma bandha, if you follow this practice. Then what is the wise person's vision? Krishna describes the characteristics of a spiritually wise person. A wise individual sees the same divine reality in all beings. Such a person he views with equal respect a learned scholar, an humble cow, an elephant, a dog, and even an outcast. This equal vision arises from understanding that the same universal self exists in every being. When one perceives this unity in diversity, feeling of superiority, feeling of prejudice and discrimination, it disappears. This spiritual equality leads to compassion, it leads to humility, and it leads to harmony in all life. We also get freedom from emotional disturbance. Sri Krishna teaches that a realized person remains balanced in both pleasure and pain, equipoised. Ordinary people are emotionally affected by success and failure, praise and blame, gain and loss. These reactions arise from attachment to the external conditions. But a wise person, he understands that true happiness comes from within, not from outside, not from temporary worldly experiences. Therefore, such a person remains calm and steady regardless of circumstances. This mental stability is called equanimity. Equanimity is the basic foundation of Bhagavad-Gītā. Samatvam yoga uchyate. There is a sloka in second adhyaya. Equanimity is yoga, and it is the key sign of spiritual maturity. Now, inner happiness versus external pleasures, how do they compare? Shri Krishna contrasts two types of happiness. One, the sense pleasures derived from contact with external objects. Eyes start seeing, ear starts hearing. So these sense subjects of Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Sagandha, you get some pleasure from that. Second pleasure is inner spiritual happiness arising from self-realization. Sense pleasures are temporary, often followed by suffering. They depend on external conditions and therefore cannot provide lasting satisfaction. In contrast, the joy experienced by one who realizes that the self is permanent and independent of external circumstances, such a person, he finds happiness within and becomes free from the restless search for worldly pleasures. This teaching encourages the devotees to turn inward and discover the deeper source of fulfillment within. Sri Krishna also emphasizes the importance of self-control in spiritual development, mastery of mind and senses. The mind and senses naturally seek external stimulation. Without discipline, they pull the individual towards desires and distractions. A yogi gradually learns to control these impulses through self-awareness, meditation, ethical living, and detachment. By mastering the mind and senses, a person becomes peaceful and free from inner conflict. This inner discipline prepares the mind for meditative absorption and self-realization. Then Shri Krishna describes the state of liberation, the state of a liberated person. Such a person is free from selfish desires, has overcome the anger and fear, sees all being with compassion, remains calm in every situation. This person, he experiences inner peace, antarik shanti, and spiritual freedom. while giving or while living in this material world. Liberation is therefore not merely a state achieved after death. मोक्ष प्राप्त करने के लिए मरना नहीं पड़ता है. It's not something which is to be acquired, to obtain after death only, but a living experience of freedom from mental bondage. That itself is moksha, which you can experience while living also. So the liberated soul, the liberated individual acts in the world only for the welfare for others, welfare of others, without personal ambitions. Then Sri Krishna Bhagavan talks about the path of meditation. Toward the end of chapter, this Adhyaya, Sri Krishna introduces the practice of meditation as a means of attaining inner peace. How important meditation is. Dhyan. Sri Krishna describes a yogi who withdraws attention from external objects, focuses mind between the eyebrows, Guru or Madhya, regulates the breathing, controls the senses. Through meditation, the mind becomes calm and centered. In this stillness, the individual experiences the presence of divine within him. Meditation helps dissolve ego and leads to the realization that the self is eternal and beyond all worldly changes. So Krishna concludes this Adhyaya by explaining the ultimate realization of a yogi. The enlightened person, the yogi, recognizes that divine is the enjoyer of all yajnas, sacrifices, the supreme lord of the universe, the true friend of all living beings. When one understands this truth deeply, all doubts, all anxieties, they disappear. Recognizing the divine as the universal well-wisher brings profound peace for us. He is our well-wisher. This realization transforms life into a sacred journey guided by wisdom and by compassion. So in conclusion, this chapter, this Adhyaya 5th of Bhagavad Gita, it teaches us that true renunciation, sannyas, lies in detachment from the fruits of action rather than abandonment of the action itself. Shri Krishna clarifies that while both renunciation and selfless action, nishkam karma, lead to liberation, the path of karma yoga is more practical for most people. By performing duties selflessly and dedicating actions to the divine, individuals purify their minds and gradually attain spiritual wisdom. This Adhyaya emphasizes several key principles on which we should do meditation actually, principle by principle. First, inner renunciation is more important than external withdrawal. Second principle, selfless action leads to spiritual freedom. Third principle is, a wise person sees the same divine reality in all beings. Fourth, true happiness comes from inner realization rather than sense pleasures. Next, control of the mind and senses is essential for peace of mind. And last, meditation leads to awareness of the self and union with the divine. And ultimately, Shri Krishna teaches that the highest spiritual state is achieved when a person lives in the world with detachment, with compassion, with equanimity, and with devotion. Such a person becomes free from the cycle of karma, no karma bandhan for him, and experiences the deep peace that comes from realizing the unity of all existences. With this brief, we now start the Adhyaya. First shloka, Arjuna uvacho sannyasam karmanam krishna punaryogan cha shanshasi yachreyeta yorekan tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Meaning is, O Krishna, sometimes you praise renunciation of action, sannyas, and at other times the path of selfless action, nishkam karma yoga. Please tell me clearly which of these two paths is better for my spiritual welfare. Tanme bruhi sunishchitam. tell me with certainty which path is better for me. So at the beginning of this adhyaya, Arjuna expresses confusion. Throughout the earlier teachings of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has explained different spiritual paths. In some places, he emphasizes renunciation, that means sannyas. The giving up of worldly activities and desires, that's sannyas. In other places, Sri Krishna explains, he praises the karma yoga, the path of performing one's duties without attachment to the results. Arjuna is unsure which path he should follow, getting confused. This confusion is very natural. When spiritual teachings describe multiple paths, people often wonder which path is superior. Arjuna therefore requests Sri Krishna to clearly explain which path leads more surely to the spiritual progress. See, the psychological state of Arjuna is worth remembering. Arjuna represents every sincere spiritual seeker. When someone begins the search for truth, they encounter many approaches. Renounce the world, perform duty selflessly, meditate, practice devotion. The mind naturally asks, which one should I follow? If you are asked, how do I go to Mumbai from Pune? Somebody tells you, you catch a bus, you can reach. You catch it. Somebody says, you catch a taxi. Somebody says, take a flight. Somebody says, no, take a train. You will ask, bhai, I asked you how to go there. Give me one option. Which is better for me? So Arjuna is confused like this. With so many paths coming to his knowledge from Sri Krishna, he is asking, which one should I follow? Arjuna's question is therefore not merely intellectual. It arises from sincere desire to follow the best path. In spiritual traditions, renunciation is often seen as the highest path, sannyas. Sannyas ashram comes at the end, no? Monks and ascetics, the yogis, they give up worldly responsibilities and devote themselves fully to spiritual practice, and we call that as sannyas. However, Sri Krishna has repeatedly told Arjuna that action performed without attachment can also lead to liberation. Thus Arjuna wonders, if renunciation is superior, then why should I fight the war? Sannyas is better, no? Then why should I do this karma, ghastly karma, fighting the war? If action is the right path, then why speak about renunciation in the action? So both ways he is thinking. This question sets the stage for this entire adhyaya. The deeper message is that true spirituality is not about abandoning action, but about transforming the attitude behind action. Shri Krishna will soon explain that renunciation, renouncing the selfish attachment while continuing to perform his duty is the higher and more practical path for most people. Arjuna's question shows humility. Rather than pretending to understand, he asks sincerely for clarification. He's not only nodding his head, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, not yes sir, yes sir. He's not pretending to understand. He's asking sincerely for clarification from Sri Krishna. This humility is an important quality for spiritual learning. Now imagine a young person, a young professional, working in a busy city. He becomes interested in spirituality and reads books about monks living in the Himalayas. He begins to think, maybe true spirituality means leaving my job, giving up everything and going to an ashram in Himalaya. But he also reads teaching saying that perform your duties selflessly and serve the society. Now he is confused. He asks his spiritual mentor, should I quit my job and become a monk? Or should I continue working and practice spirituality in my daily life? This situation, it mirrors Arjuna's question exactly. Like Arjuna, the young professional, he seeks clarity between renunciation and selfless action. So the practical lesson for us is, this shloka teaches an important lesson to us. Asking sincere questions is essential for spiritual growth. Instead of blindly following the teachings, a seeker should inquire, should reflect, and should seek guidance from the wisdom. Arjuna's question opens the door for Sri Krishna to explain one of the most important teachings of Bhagavad Gita, the harmony between renunciation and action, harmony between sannyas and karma. So Sri Krishna starts explaining now, second shloka, Shri Bhagavan Uvacho, Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nishreyasakara Bubhau Tayostu Karma Sannyasad Karma Yogo Vishishyate. Sri Krishna says, both renunciation and action, renunciation of action and selfless action lead to liberation. Sannyasa karma yogascha nishreyasa karabho. Further he says, however, karma yoga, selfless action, is superior. Karma yoga vishishyate, is superior to the renunciation of action. So Shri Krishna responds clearly to Arjuna's question now. He says that both sannyas, renunciation, and selfless action, karma yoga, can lead to the highest spiritual goal. However, for most people, karma yoga is the better path. Now, why both paths lead to the liberation? Renunciation removes worldly distractions. A person who withdraws from worldly activities can dedicate his entire life to spiritual practices, isn't it? However, true renunciation is extremely difficult. It requires complete control of mind and senses, which is not an easy task. Karma yoga, on the other hand, allows a person to live in the world while gradually purifying the mind. So when actions are performed without selfish motives, without attachment to the results, as an offering to the God, then those actions no longer binds the soul. That is the principle of Karma Yoga. Thus both paths will lead to liberation. But Karma Yoga is generally easier and more practical. Why Karma Yoga is superior for most people? Shri Krishna emphasizes Karma Yoga because human beings are naturally active. The mind and body cannot remain inactive for long. We are living in the world. If someone renounces action prematurely, the mind may still remain attached to the desires. He may go and sit in Himalayas, but the mind is getting attached to the worldly pleasures. Outward renunciation without inner purity can lead to hypocrisy. And God doesn't like hypocrisy. But Karma Yoga transforms everyday life into spiritual practice. Every action becomes a form of meditation and service to the God. So Gita teaches us that problem is not action itself, but attachment to the fruits of action. That is the problem. For example, working is not the problem. Desire for personal reward creates the bondage. When we perform our duties with right attitude, action becomes a path to liberation rather than a cause of bondage. Consider a doctor, for example, working in a hospital. One doctor works only for salary, prestige, and recognition. Another doctor performs the same work with compassion, seeing every patient as a form of God, Mamai Mamsho Jiva Loke, and Sarvasya Chaham Vritanavishto. Like that he sees at every person, and focusing only on serving humanity. Both doctors performs identical actions, but their inner attitude is different. The second doctor practices Karma Yoga. His work becomes spiritual practice. This is exactly what Sri Krishna means when he says Karma Yoga is superior. Another example. Imagine two individuals interested in spirituality. Person A, he quits his job and moves to a mountain monastery, but constantly thinks about money, status, and worldly pleasures. Person B continues working but dedicates every action to helping others and serving the society. Which one is closer to spiritual realization? According to Shri Krishna, the second person practicing Karma Yoga is closer to liberation. So Shri Krishna teachings encourages balance of life. Instead of rejecting the world, we learn to live in the world without being controlled by it. That is Krishna's teaching. This approach makes spirituality accessible to everyone. Students, workers, parents, leaders, citizens, everybody. Everybody can follow Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga transforms daily life into a path of spiritual evolution for us. Continuing the discussion further, Shlok 3rd. Niyasya nitya sannyasi yo na dveshtina kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. Shri Krishna says, one who neither hates nor desires, na dveshti na kankshati. One who neither hates nor desires anything should be known as a true renunciate, true sannyasi, free from all pairs of opposites, nirdvandva. Such a person easily becomes liberated from the bondage. Nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. So Shri Krishna now clarifies the true meaning of renunciation. What is sannyas? Renunciation is not merely giving up possessions, giving up career, or giving up family. True renunciation is freedom from inner attachment. You may live in the family, you may continue with your profession, your career, but if you are having freedom from your inner attachment to everything that you are doing, then you renunciate. Then you are sannyasi. Then a person who neither hates nor excessively desires anything is the real renunciate. God has said, na dveshti na kankshati. He is a renunciate. So the two forces that bind the mind, Shri Krishna identifies two powerful forces that disturb the mind. One, desires, akanksha, strong craving for something that disturbs the mind. And second, hatred, dvesh, strong aversion or strong dislike. These two emotions create constant mental disturbance. Desires, they pull us towards the certain experiences. Hatred pushes us away from others. The mind becomes trapped in this endless cycle of attraction and repulsion. Now, how to get freedom from these dualities? Shri Krishna calls such a liberated person nirdvandva, free from the pairs of opposites, such as success and failure, praise and criticism, pleasure and pain, gain and loss. So a person established in spiritual wisdom, he remains calm in all the situations. The inner freedom leads to liberation. Now, how to do renunciation in daily life? This shloka shifts the definition of renunciation from external lifestyle to internal attitude. A person living in a city, working a job, and raising a family can still be a true renunciate if their minds remains balanced. Similarly, someone living in a forest monastery may still be attached internally. Therefore, Shri Krishna says the true renunciate is the one free from desire and hatred. Na dveshti na kankshati. Consider two business leaders. One becomes extremely happy when profits rise and becomes deeply depressed when losses occur. He constantly fears failure and craves for success all the time. Another business leader, he performs his duties sincerely but remains calm whether profits rise or fall. He learns from both success and failure. He learns from both and without emotional disturbance. The second leader is close to spiritual ideal described in this shloka. He is free from dualities, nirdvanda, dualities of gain and loss. Another example. Think of social media reactions now. We put something on WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook or something, and we expect somebody will put comment, very good, something like that. Somebody will at least do this thing. Many people feel great joy when they receive praise online and feel upset when someone criticizes them. This they like, but this they don't like. Their happiness depends on others' opinions. But a spiritually mature person, he remains calm whether he's praised or whether he's criticized. He focuses on doing what is right rather than seeking the approval from others. This is the state Krishna is describing. And freedom from desire and hatred gradually dissolves the mental bondage. When the mind becomes calm and balanced, deeper spiritual awareness naturally arises. Such a person, he experiences inner peace, regardless of external circumstances. Krishna assures Arjuna that this balanced state leads easily to liberation. In summary, the first shloka, Arjuna is asking a question, which path is better? Renunciation or selfless action? In second shloka, Shri Krishna he has said, both lead to the liberation. But karma yoga is superior. Karma yoga vishishyate. And in this third shloka, we learned that true renunciation means freedom from desire and hatred. Na dveshti, na kankshati is the true renunciation. So these three things we have learned in these three shlokas. Continue with fourth shloka. Sankhya yoga vrdagbala pravadantina panditaha ekamapyasthita samyak voyorvindate phalam. Now Shri Krishna continues, saying, only the ignorant say that the path of knowledge, Sankhya yoga, and the path of action, Karma yoga, are different. The wise knows that by properly following either of them, whether Sankhya yoga or Karma yoga, one attains the same ultimate goal. Ekamapyasthita samyak voyorvindate phalam. So in this shloka, Lord Shri Krishna clarifies a very important philosophical, very important philosophical confusion. Earlier in the Adhyaya, Arjuna had asked whether renunciation of action, sannyas, or selfless action, karma yoga, is superior. What is superior? Krishna explained that karma yoga is generally easier for most people. Now he goes deeper into this and explains that the path of knowledge, Sankhya, and the path of selfless action, Karma Yoga, ultimately lead to the same spiritual realization. So Shri Krishna says that only the ignorant, Ajnani, they think that these paths are different and they lead to different destinations. While the one understands they are essentially unity, that both lead to the same destination. Now, Sankhya principle, Sankhya path emphasizes knowledge and discrimination. A seeker following this path realizes through deep contemplation that the soul is distinct from body and mind. So a seeker following this path of Sankhya, he realizes through deep contemplation that soul is distinct from body and mind. Through this understanding, attachment to worldly actions, they disappear. Now, Karma Yoga path, it focuses on performing duties without attachment to the results, to the phala. Instead of withdrawing from action, the seeker continues to act, but with a purified attitude. Although this approach appears different, the final goal of both paths is the same: realization of the true self and freedom from bondage. Both give the same result. Now, why people think that these paths are different? Many people believe that spiritual person must either become a monk, pursue knowledge, or remain active in society, performing duties. Sorry. So this creates a false division between spiritual knowledge and worldly actions. Shri Krishna rejects this misunderstanding. He explains that true wisdom naturally expresses itself through right action, and selfless action gradually leads to spiritual wisdom only. So these two paths are interconnected rather than they are opposed. When a person performs actions selflessly, the mind becomes purified, right? A purified mind becomes capable of understanding deeper spiritual truths. This understanding eventually leads to realization of the self. Similarly, a person who gains true knowledge naturally becomes detached from the selfish motives and acts for the welfare of others. Therefore, knowledge leads to selfless action, and selfless action leads to knowledge. So both are interconnected. They are not different. Shri Krishna is teaching that spirituality is not divided into rigid categories. Instead, it is an integrated process of inner transformation, and both are interconnected. Imagine two individuals seeking personal growth in their lives. The first person he spends years studying philosophy, psychology, spirituality. Through deep reflection, he gradually realizes that happiness does not depend on material success. The second person, he spends years serving the society, helping the poor, volunteering, working selflessly without expecting rewards. Although their approaches are different, both eventually develop humility, compassion, and wisdom. The first one, he learns through knowledge, while the second one learns through service. Yet, both reach the same inner transformation, purity of heart. This is exactly what Shri Krishna means when he says that the wise see both paths leading to the same result. Another example. Consider the world of education. One student learns mainly through theoretical study, while other learns through practical experience. The first understands concept intellectually. He can explain the concept very well, while the second understands them through action. Eventually, both of them develop the mastery over the subject. Similarly, Sankhya represents theoretical realization, while the Karma Yoga represents the practical realization. This shloka encourages us not to create division in spirituality. Some people prefer meditation and philosophical reflection. Others prefer social service and active engagement in the world. Both approaches lead to spiritual growth if practiced sincerely. The key is not external path, but the inner transformation of the mind and of the heart. Continuing with next shloka, Shlok 5. Yat sankhe prapyate sthanam tadyoga irapi gamyate ekam sankhya yogancha yah pashyati sa pashyati. Shri Krishna further says, the state achieved by the followers of Sankhya, that means knowledge, is also attained by the followers of Karma Yoga. One who sees these two paths as one, he truly understands. Yah pashyati sa pashyati. जिसने ये जान लिया उसने सब जान लिया. One who sees this, he sees the ultimate truth. Yah pashyati sa pashyati. So in this shloka, Shri Krishna reinforces the unity between these two paths path of knowledge and path of action. He explains that the spiritual state attained by philosophers and contemplative through knowledge is the same state attained by karma yogis through selfless action. This statement emphasizes that truth is one, though the paths to reach that truth may appear different. The state Shri Krishna refers here is the self-realization. The realization that the true self, Atma, is eternal, pure, and beyond body and mind. When this realization occurs, the ego dissolves, attachment disappears, inner peace arises, and one experiences unity with all existences. Whether a person reaches this state through meditation, through knowledge, or through selfless action makes little difference. Ultimately, you are interested in reaching the destination, no? How you reach there is not very important. The destination is same. So Shri Krishna says, one who sees Sankhya and Yoga as one, he truly sees. This means that spiritual maturity includes ability to recognize the deeper unity behind apparently different paths. Apparently they may differ, they may appear different, but they are leading to the same destination. This knowledge, one who has, he sees the truth. Immature thinking divides spirituality into competing schools and traditions. Ye acha hai, wo bura hai. Mature wisdom sees the harmony between them. Throughout history, different spiritual traditions have emphasized different practices. Some focuses on meditation, some focuses on service, some focus on devotion, some focus on philosophical inquiry. Krishna's teachings reminds us that these differences are not contradictions, but complementary approaches. All sincere spiritual practices ultimately lead towards the same truth. Imagine two mountain climbers attempting to reach the summit of a high mountain. One climbs from the north side, while the other climbs from the south side. Their routes are different, and the landscapes they encounter along the way are also different. However, they reach the summit. They both stand in the same place. Similarly, Sankhya and Karma Yoga are different paths up the mountain of spiritual realization. Ultimately, both will reach the same spot. But the summit is same for both of them. Consider two professionals achieving excellence. One becomes successful through academic study and intellectual analysis. Another becomes successful through hands-on experience and practical work. Their learning methods are different. They may differ, but both eventually reach the mastery. This illustrates the idea that Shri Krishna is describing in this shloka. What is the relevance in today's modern life of these shlokas that we are studying now? In modern society, people often debate which spiritual practice is superior. Meditation, yoga, prayer, service, what is better? Shri Krishna's teachings, it invites us to move beyond such debates. Chhod do. Don't waste your time in such meaningless debates. Instead of arguing about which path is best, we should focus on sincerity, discipline, and inner growth. Follow any path. Ultimately, you'll reach the same destination. So, true spirituality is not about proving one path superior to another, but about transforming ourselves. That is spirituality. Next shloka, 6th. Sanyasastu mahabaho dukhamaptama yogataha yoga yukto munir brahma nachirena gacchati. God says, renunciation is difficult to achieve without karma yoga. Listen it again. Renunciation is difficult to achieve without karma yoga. However, one who practices karma yoga quickly attains the realization of the Supreme. That is the importance of karma yoga. Shri Krishna now explains why karma yoga is especially important. He says that renunciation without preparation is very difficult. If a person tries to renounce worldly life without first purifying the mind through selfless action, the attempt may lead to frustration. Why renunciation is difficult? Sannyas difficult क्यों है? Human beings are naturally active. Our minds are constantly generating thoughts, constantly generating desires, ambitions. If someone suddenly abandons responsibilities and external activities without inner purification, the mind may still remain restless. The mind doesn't become sannyasi. Externally, you may take sannyas, but mind should take sannyas, na? Such a person might appear to be renounced outwardly, but internally remains attached to the desires. फिर काय का sannyasi? Therefore, Shri Krishna says, renunciation alone can be difficult. Karma Yoga prepares the mind. Karma Yoga gradually purifies the mind by removing selfish motives. When actions are performed without ego, without greed, and as service to others, the mind becomes calm and disciplined. Such purified mind becomes naturally inclined towards spiritual realization. So Shri Krishna's teachings encourage gradual spiritual evolution rather than sudden renunciation. सब छोड़ छाड़ के भाग जाना. Shri Krishna doesn't recommend that. He encourages gradual spiritual evolution. By performing daily duties with the right attitude, individuals slowly develop detachment, wisdom, and inner peace. Eventually, realization of Supreme becomes a natural process. Imagine someone trying to run a marathon without any training. पेपर में एडवर्टाइजमेंट देखा मैराथन ओके आई विल आल्सो गो the effort will likely lead to exhaustion and failure. Or if a person begins with small daily exercises and gradually increases endurance, running the marathon becomes possible for him. Similarly, Karma Yoga is like daily training of the mind and then taking the marathon of sannyas. It builds spiritual strength step by step. Renunciation without preparation is like attempting the marathon without training. Another example. Consider a student who wants to become a great musician. If the student suddenly attempts a complex concert without learning the basics, the result will be frustration, no? But by practicing the scales, the simple compositions daily, the student gradually becomes capable of performing difficult music. Karma Yoga is the daily practice that prepares the mind for the higher spiritual realization. Ultimate goal, Shri Krishna assures Arjuna that a person who practices Karma Yoga sincerely will eventually realize Parabrahma, the supreme reality. Such realization brings freedom from sufferings and experience of deep inner peace. So the Shlok 4, we learn that only ignorant think the path of knowledge and actions are different. In 5th Shloka, we learn both paths lead to the same spiritual realization. And in this 6th Shloka, we learn that renunciation without Karma Yoga is difficult. Karma Yoga leads quickly to realization. Continuing further, 7th Shloka, Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriyaha Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma Kurvannapi na lipyate. A person established in Karma Yoga, whose mind is pure, Vishuddhatma, who has conquered the self and senses, Vijitatma and Jitendriya, and who sees the self in all beings. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. He remains untouched by actions even while performing them. Kurvannapi na lipyate. So in this shloka, Shri Krishna describes the qualities of a person who has mastered the Karma Yoga. Such a person, he lives actively in the world, but remains spiritually free. That is the magic. Shri Krishna explains that a Karma Yogi possesses four important qualities. Number one, purity of mind, Vishuddhatma. Number two, self-mastery, Vijitatma. Third, control of senses, Jitendriya. And fourth, awareness of unity with all beings, Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Because of these four qualities, even though karma yogis perform many actions, those actions do not create bondage. The first characteristic is purified mind, Vishuddhatma. Through selfless actions performed without attachment, selfish desires gradually diminish. When actions are motivated by service rather than personal gain, the mind becomes calm and clear. This purity allows the person to perceive deeper truths about the life. Otherwise, the mind is engaged only in expecting something, personal gains. This shloka also mentions Vijitatma. Imagine one who has conquered the ego, Vijitatma. The ego constantly seeks recognition, praise, and personal benefits. When a person practices karma yoga, actions are performed as offering to the divine, rather than for personal glory. As a result, the ego gradually loses the power. Another essential quality is the control of senses, Jitendriya. The senses constantly pull the mind towards external pleasures. However, the karma yogi learns to maintain balance. Pleasure and pain no longer dominate the mind. This self-control creates inner freedom for karma yogi. Then seeing self in all beings, Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. Perhaps the most profound teaching in this shloka is the idea of seeing the self in all beings. When a person realizes that the same divine consciousness exists in everyone, compassion and empathy naturally arise. This realization transforms how we interact with others. Instead of seeing people as competitors or strangers, we begin to see them as a part of same universal life as our brothers and sisters. Because of these qualities, the karma yogi remains free even while performing actions. Kurvan napi na lipyate. Ordinary actions bind us because they are driven by desire and ego. But actions performed with wisdom and detachment become spiritually liberating. Consider a social worker who dedicates his life to helping disadvantaged communities. She works tirelessly, organizing educational programs, providing food, and helping families to improve their lives. If she performs this work purely for recognition or for praise, she may eventually become frustrated or exhausted. But if she performs it with the attitude of service, seeing every person as part of the same human family, her work becomes meaningful and uplifting. Even though she performs many actions, she remains inwardly peaceful. This is the spirit of Karma Yoga Shri Krishna is describing in this shloka. Take another example. Imagine a leader in a company who treats employees with respect and fairness. Instead of exploiting others for profit, he sees the organization as a community where everyone deserves dignity. Such a leader understands that success should benefit everyone, not just himself. This awareness reflects the idea of seeing the same self in other. Sarvabhutatma Bhutatma. So this shloka teaches that true spirituality does not require withdrawing from society. Instead, it requires transforming our attitude toward actions and relationships. When the mind is purified and ego is well controlled, even ordinary work becomes a path to liberation. Samanya karma becomes a tool for liberation. So reading Bhagavad Gita, doing chintan, contemplation is therefore so important. We can attain liberation through simple actions if we have the right attitude. Continue with next shloka. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyet tattvavit pashnai shrunman sprushai jighran nashnan gachan smapaishwasan. This is considered to be slightly difficult for pronunciation, but really speaking, it is not so. Sri says, a person who knows the truth, he thinks, I do nothing at all. Naiva kinchit karomiti. मैं कुछ नहीं कर रहा हूँ. Even while seeing, while hearing, while touching, while smelling, while eating, while walking, while sleeping, or while breathing. Pashay Shunman, Surushay Jigran, Natnan Gachan Spamaishasan. Naiva Kinchit Karomiti. Doing everything that is described in the second line of this shloka, the one who has the knowledge, he says, I am not doing any of this. So in this shloka, Sri Gurudeva introduces a profound spiritual insight for human beings. The real self is not the doer of actions. Real self is not the doer of actions. Naiva Kinchit Karomiti. A realized person understands that actions occur through the body and senses, but the inner self remains unchanged. Therefore, even while performing ordinary activities, the enlightened person feels inwardly free. According to the philosophy of Bhagavad-Gītā, actions are performed by body, senses and mind, which are a part of Prakriti, nature. Soul is not a part of Prakriti. Soul is a part of God. Mama Yamamsho Jivaloki. The self Atma, however, is pure consciousness. It observes but does not act. Such a person identifies strongly. See, when a person identifies strongly with the body and mind, he starts believing, I am the doer, I am doing this. But when spiritual understanding deepens, when you do contemplation of Bhagavad Gita shlokas like this, the person realizes that actions are a part of natural functioning of life. If you are the doer, can you remain without breathing for 2 minutes, 3 minutes? You are breathing, na? Then okay, stop your breathing for 3 minutes. Will you remain alive after 3 minutes? So none of these actions we do on our own. Prakriti gets it done from us. It is the mind and body and senses that do this, not the soul. Soul is independent of all this. Everyday activities are listed here. Seeing, hearing, eating, walking, sleeping, breathing. These are ordinary body functions. The enlightened person recognizes that these activities occur naturally through the body. The self simply witnesses them. This understanding reduces our ego and attachment. When someone believes that they are the sole doer of actions, they may develop pride when things succeed or guilt when they fail. But when a person understands that life operates through many interconnected forces, they become humble and peaceful. Consider a skilled surgeon performing a complex operation. After years of training, the surgeon's hands move with precision, almost automatically. Thousands of operations he has done. The knowledge, the experience, and the coordination developed over time guide the actions. If the surgeon constantly thinks, I alone am performing this, the stress and anxiety may arise. But if the surgeon simply focuses on the process and allows training and skill to guide the work, the task becomes smoother for him. Similarly, the enlightened person allows life to flow naturally through them without excessive ego involvement. मैं कर रहा हूँ. This ego he doesn't have. Take example from sports, for example. Athletes, they often describe the state called as being in the zone. Being in the zone. During this state of being in the zone, the actions feel effortless and spontaneous. The athlete is not constantly thinking about each moment. The body responds naturally for the athlete. This experience reflects the idea Shri Krishna is describing here. The athlete is still acting, but the sense of I am doing this disappears temporarily. So the lesson for us is this shloka encourages us to develop a witness attitude towards life. You remain a sakshi, witnessed towards your life. Instead of constantly identifying with every thought and every action, we can observe them with awareness. Become a spectator, become a witness. Such awareness, it reduces the stress, anxiety, and ego-driven behavior. Continue with next shloka. Pralapan visrujan grunnan mission nimishan napi indriyani indriyartheshu vartanta iti dharayan. Same list continues now. Earlier we saw some daily activities, now continuing while speaking, while releasing. Visrujan, disposal of body waste. Visrujan, grasping, opening and closing eyes. Unmission, nimission, we do this like this, no? Eyes. The wise person understands that the senses are simply interacting with their objects. I am not the doer. Pralapan means speaking. Visrujan means releasing the body waste, letting it go. Grundan is to grasp something. Unmission, opening the eyes. Nimission, closing the eyes. Indriyani, the senses. Indriyartheshu, the sense objects. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha are the sense objects. Vartante, are functioning or interacting. Iti, thus, dharayan, understanding or realizing. So while speaking, while releasing, grasping, opening and closing of eyes, the wise person understands that the senses are simply interacting with their sense objects. You think you are doing the unmission way, then don't do it. How long you can remain without closing and opening your eyes? It becomes natural process. You don't do it. It is a natural process that is followed. So the soul is not the doer of all these actions. So this shloka continues the teachings of non-attachment and non-doership. Krishna explains that a wise person understands that actions are simply interactions between senses and the external world. The mechanics of action, for example, eyes perceive visual objects, ears perceive the sound, hands grasp the object, tongue tastes the food. These interactions occur naturally through the senses. Soul is not a part of this. The enlightened person recognizes this process and does not identify it as my action. When we strongly identify with every action, we become emotionally entangled with the outcomes of actions. But when we understand that life operates through natural processes, we gain inner freedom. This does not mean becoming passive or careless. That is not the meaning. Instead, it means acting with awareness while remaining internally detached. And will continue to work the way they are doing now. But internally, you should remain detached. Give the credit to your hands. Don't take credit to yourselves. Give the credit to the Prakriti. Krishna encourages us to cultivate witness consciousness. This means observing thoughts, observing emotions, and observing actions without excessive identification with them. The witness remains calm and unaffected even as experiences become the experiences come and go. He remains calm. Imagine someone learning meditation. At first, the person feels overwhelmed by the thoughts. Those who are doing meditation, they know this. The mind constantly produces memories, plans. It doesn't zero down. You sit for meditation, the mind will go and sit in Pizza Hut or some past experience that you will start remembering, or you start worrying for something in the future. But during meditation, the person learns to observe these thoughts and without reacting to them. That is the process of meditation. Observe the thoughts coming and going from your mind as a witness. Don't fight with them. Don't argue with those thoughts. That is the meditation. Gradually they realize that thoughts arise and disappear naturally. You don't have to force them. They come and they go on their own. You don't have to force exit. They begin to understand that the mind is simply functioning. Just as the senses interact with the world, mind is playing with the thoughts. This insight creates peace and clarity. When someone becomes an experienced driver, for example, many actions occur automatically to him. Steering, he handles immediately. Changing the gears, he does it simultaneously. Pressing the pedals, he does it automatically. Observing the traffic with the eyes, he does it automatically. These actions happen through coordination of senses and muscles. Soul is not involved. The driver does not consciously analyze each moment. It happens automatically. Once you have learned the driving, all these actions happen automatically. When to change the gear, when to press the pedal, when to move the steering. And constantly you keep observing the traffic, of course. So similarly, a wise person understands that many actions occur naturally through body and senses. So the lesson for us is, this shloka teaches us to develop awareness without attachment. Like we don't get attached when we are driving. It is happening naturally, no? So continue to do your work without attachment. That is the only lesson God is giving us. When we observe our actions and experiences calmly, we become less reactive and more balanced. Life continues with all its activities, but the inner self remains peaceful at all times. So these three shlokas, in seventh shloka, we learned that the karma yogi is purified with mind and controlled senses. He remains unaffected by actions. In eighth shloka, we learn the enlightened person understands the true self is not the doer of actions. And in this last ninth shloka, we learned that actions are simply interactions between senses and the world. They are simple interactions between the senses and the world. Soul is not the doer of those actions. I think we'll stop here for the day and we'll continue these wonderful discussions in the next session. But in the meantime, if in this 9 shlokas, if you have any questions or any questions on Bhagavad Gita, any adhyay, you are most welcome to raise your questions. Thank you so much for listening to me. Jai Shri Krishna to all. Jai Shri Krishna.
Yeah. So thank you, Bhaiya. That was an enlightening session, and Bhaiya dealt in detail. He discussed in detail with stories to make us understand the shlokas learned this week. The lessons we learned were profound. We will be seeing more of this in coming sessions. Now it's time for questions and answers. I request those who want to ask questions to raise their hands and switch on their cameras and wait for their turn. And a reminder to everyone, please do some seva in Geeta Pariwar as per your talent. Yeah. Bhaiya, over to you for question and answers. Yeah. Debash is Paul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
जय श्री कृष्ण भैया।
जय श्री कृष्ण।
मैं हिंदी में पूछ सकती हूँ?
जी जी जरूर।
आपने बताया कि ये सब इंद्रियां अपना अपना काम करती हैं, तो जब गलत काम होता है, जैसे ये नहीं खाना चाहिए, ये नहीं करना चाहिए, तो वो कौन करवाता है? माइंड? या नेचुरली तो नहीं होता है ना, तो वो तो हम ही करते हैं। तो ये दिमाग में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो रहा है, तो ये कौन करता है फिर?
हाँ, बढ़िया सवाल पूछा आपने। देखिए, जो हमारी इंद्रिय है ना, हमारी ये आँख, नाक, कान, ये 5
हाँ।
जो इंद्रिया है, उनका बॉस होता है हमारा माइंड, और माइंड का बॉस होता है हमारी बुद्धि। जो आप तीसरा अध्याय पढ़ेंगे तो आपको ये श्लोक है उसमें कि ये हायरार्की कैसी होती है। पहले हमारा जड़ शरीर होता है, जड़ शरीर के ऊपर रहता है हमारी इंद्रिय, इंद्रिय के ऊपर होता है हमारा मन, और मन के ऊपर होती है बुद्धि, और बुद्धि के ऊपर होता है आत्मा। आत्मा का वो स्थान है जो बुद्धि के ऊपर का है। हम गड़बड़ ये करते हैं कि हम जो करते हैं उसको आत्मा को उसके नीचे लाते हो, उसका स्थान बहुत ऊपर है, उसको नीचे घसीट के लाते हैं हम इंद्रिय के स्थान पे। जबकि वो
अच्छा।
इंद्रिय के ऊपर मन है, मन के ऊपर बुद्धि है, बुद्धि के ऊपर वो है। लेकिन आपने जो सवाल पूछा कि कौन करता है फिर ये, तो ये
हाँ,
मन
हम
करता है। देखिए,
मन
इंद्रिय
करता
जो है हमारे, हाँ, इंद्रिय जो है हमारे, इंद्रिय में कुछ उनका इंडिविजुअल इंटेलेक्चुअल इंटेलिजेंस उसमें है नहीं। आंखों को थोड़ी इंटेलिजेंस है कुछ, कानों में थोड़ी ना कुछ इंटेलिजेंस है। वो तो सिर्फ देखने का काम करते हैं। क्या देखा है वो मन को ट्रांसमिट होता है, और मन को ये अच्छा लगता है तो मन खुश होता है, मन को अच्छा नहीं लगता तो मन दुखी होता है। आंखों का कुछ काम नहीं है कि अच्छा क्या है बुरा क्या है, आंखों में सिर्फ देखने का काम होता है। तो ये तो मन है जो एनालाइज करता है, और ये मन है जो हमको बंधन में डालता है, क्योंकि वो इंद्रियों के खेल में लिपट जाता है। इंद्रियों में अच्छा किया तो जो द्वंद्व निर्द्वंद्व परमात्मा की अपेक्षा हम निर्द्वंद्व हो, तो जो इंद्रिय और इंद्रियों के विषय है उनमें से क्या होगा, आंखों ने कुछ देखा तो कुछ अच्छा लगेगा, कुछ बुरा लगेगा। कुछ खाया जबान से, हमारी जीवा
है।
से, कुछ अच्छा लगेगा, कुछ अच्छा नहीं लगेगा। कान से कुछ सुना, कुछ अच्छा लगेगा, कुछ अच्छा नहीं लगेगा। होता यह है कि जो अच्छा लगता है उसमें हम लिप्त हो जाते हैं, और जो बुरा लगता है उसको, उसकी घृणा करने लगते हैं। तो ये जो राग द्वेष का खेल है, ये हमारे मन को 24 घंटे उलझाए रखता है। हम ट्रेन में जा रहे हैं, सामने वाला आदमी बैठा है, हमने उसकी तरफ देख के स्माइल दिया, उसने हमारी तरफ देखा भी नहीं, स्माइल भी नहीं दिया। हम सोचने लगते हैं कि क्या आदमी है ये,
हम्म।
मैंने स्माइल दिया, स्माइल भी नहीं दे रहा मेरी तरफ को। और घंटे भर तक हम उसमें मन में उलझे रहते हैं कि आदमी ने ऐसा क्यों किया। गुस्सा करने लगते हैं फिर थोड़ी देर बाद वो स्माइल देता है, वो कहता है कि मैं सॉरी, मैं दूसरा विचार कर रहा था, सॉरी आई कुड नॉट पे अटेंशन टू यू। देन वी अगेन फॉल इन लव विद हिम। अरे हाँ, होगा उसका भी कुछ काम होगा शायद ऐसा। ये जरूरत है क्या मन को इसमें उलझाने की, राग द्वेष में। तो निर्द्वंद्व जो खेल है, परमात्मा सिखाते हैं हमको कि निर्द्वंद्व रहने की कोशिश करो। मन जो इंद्रिय और इंद्रिय के विषय है, उनमें से कुछ तो निकलेगा जो तुम्हारे मन को अच्छा लगेगा, कुछ लगेगा वो अच्छा नहीं लगेगा। तो उस खेल में पड़े मत रहो जिंदगी भर, नहीं तो आखिरी सांस तक उसी में पड़े रहोगे कि ये अच्छा है वो
लेकिन
बुरा,
मन
ये
तो
अच्छा है वो बुरा।
मन तो मेरा ही है ना, तो मैं ही अपने, एज यू सेड कि यू आर नॉट डूअर, बट कर तो मैं ही रही हूँ, मेरा मन ही कर रहा है ना, तो मैं ही हुई।
हाँ, तो मैं ही, देखिए, मैं मतलब मैं सोल हूँ, वही कर रहा हूँ मैं। मन के ऊपर बुद्धि है, और बुद्धि ऊपर जो आत्मा है वो मैं हूँ। ये जो मन है, इंद्रिय, मन, शरीर, बुद्धि, ये प्रकृति की देन है हमको, भगवान की देन नहीं है, ये प्रकृति की देन है। हम भाग्यशाली है कि हमको मनुष्य का शरीर मिला है। पिछले कर्मों के अनुसार हमको मनुष्य का शरीर मिला है। तो मनुष्य के शरीर के अनुसार जो बुद्धि है, जो मन है, जो इंद्रिय है, वो हमको प्रकृति से प्राप्त हुए हैं।
अच्छा।
हमारा जो अस्तित्व है, वो हमारा सोल है, हमारा आत्मा है, जो
ओके।
परमात्मा का अंश है। तो हम परमात्मा का अंश है, ये बात को हम भूल जाते हैं। हमको लगता है कि मैं मतलब ये शरीर हूँ, मैं मतलब ये बुद्धि हूँ, मैं मतलब ये मन हूँ। हम उससे ऊपर है। इसीलिए परमात्मा सिखाते हैं हमको पूरी भगवत गीता में कि आप एक विटनेस की तरह रहिए, एक साक्षी की तरह रहिए। आपके मन में जो विचार आते हैं, कहाँ से आते हैं, कहाँ जा रहे हैं, एक साक्षी भाव से देखना शुरू करेंगे ना, तो मन धीरे धीरे शांत होने लगेगा। लेकिन मन में घुसते रहेंगे कि मैं मन हूँ, मैं शरीर हूँ, मैं इंद्रिय हूँ, मैं बुद्धि हूँ, फिर उसमें उलझे रहेंगे जिंदगी भर। आत्मा की लेवल तक जाएंगे ही नहीं। हम सिर्फ सेंसेस की लेवल पे जिंदगी भर हमारी वेस्ट कर देते हैं, आत्मा की लेवल तक जानने की कोशिश भी नहीं करते। गीता का उद्देश्य यही है कि आप लेवल ऊपर जाइए, आपका आत्मा के लेवल तक जाना है आपको। मन या इंद्रियों के लेवल पे ऊपर मत रुकिए आप। तो ये धारणा मन में रखनी चाहिए, और ये धारणा आती है ध्यान लगाने से। जब हम ध्यान के लिए बैठते हैं ना, तब ध्यान से धारणा आती है कि मैं वो हूँ। क्योंकि मन में विचार आते हैं, मन से विचार जाते हैं, तो जो आता आता जाता रहता है वो मैं हूँ क्या, नहीं वो मैं नहीं। मेरी आंखें दिन में कुछ कुछ देखती है, कुछ नहीं देखती है, कुछ आंखें बंद करती है, वो मैं हूँ क्या, नहीं वो मैं नहीं हूँ। ऐसा करते करते जब हम इस नतीजे पे पहुंचते हैं कि मैं इनमें से कुछ भी नहीं हूं, मैं वो आत्मा हूं जो ये सब देख रहा है, तो ये विटनेस का जो रोल है हमारा, वो जब हमने सीख लेते हैं विटनेस का रोल, तो मन में बड़ी शांति आती है। फिर कोई डिस्टर्बेंस नहीं होता है।
ये माइंड हमेशा क्यों सोचता रहता है, इवन सोने के बाद भी सपना आता रहता है, तो ये माइंड हमेशा ही काम करता रहता है।
हाँ, क्यों करना
तो
है, क्यों
ये
करना है।
मेडिटेशन आप कहते हैं,
हाँ
मेडिटेशन से शांत होता
हाँ
है दिमाग,
हाँ
लेकिन
हाँ,
लेकिन इतनी प्रैक्टिस करते हैं तो भी माइंड तो एक जगह स्थिर नहीं हो पाता है।
सही बात है। देखिए
तो
क्या
ये
है कि
क्यों भागता
माइंड,
रहता है इधर
हाँ,
उधर?
तो ये क्यों इधर उधर क्यों घूमते रहता है माइंड, उसका कारण है
हम्म।
हमारे संस्कार। इस जन्म में जो हमने कर्म किए वो, या पिछले अनेक जन्मों के, ये कि हमारा पहला जन्म नहीं है ना, इसके पहले अनेक जन्म हमारे हो चुके हैं। तो पूर्व जन्म के जो संस्कार है, हर एक जन्म में जो हम एक कोई भी छोटा सा भी कर्म करते हैं, तो उस कर्म की एक जेरोक्स कॉपी बोलिए, उसको इम्प्रिंट बोलिए, हमारे अंतःकरण में तीन थैले पड़े हैं, तीन थैले हैं। एक थैला है सात्विक नाम का, दूसरा है राजसी नाम का थैला, तीसरा है तामसी नाम का थैला। हम
हम्म।
जब सात्विक कर्म करते हैं, तो सात्विक कर्म का एक इम्प्रिंट वो सात्विक थैले में जाके पड़ता है। जब राजसी कर्म करते हैं, तो राजसी थैले में पड़ता है। जो तामसी कर्म करते हैं, तो तामसी थैले में जाके पड़ता है। जिंदगी के अंत में हम शरीर तो लेके जाते नहीं है, इंद्रिय लेके जाते नहीं है, बुद्धि लेके जाते नहीं है। ये जो तीन थैले हैं, ये तीन थैले हम लेके जाते हैं अगले जन्म में। और जो जैसा थैला हमारा बड़ा होगा, वैसा हमारे संस्कार होते हैं। यदि हमारा थैला सात्विक कर्म का बड़ा होगा, तो अगला जन्म हमारा सात्विक होगा, सात्विक भाव का होगा। यदि राजसी का होगा, तो राजसी सब होगा, तामसिक होगा, तामसिक होगा। तो सात्विक में सपोज 60% है, तो हमारा 60% नेचर सात्विक रहेगा। सपोज 30% राजसी है, तो राजसी 30% रहेगा, और बाकी 10% तामसी रहेगा। ये जो तीन थैले जो हमारे कर्म का ही संस्कार है, वो कोई बाहर से आता नहीं है, हमारे ही कर्म के संस्कार है। और ये संस्कार हमारे मन को अगले जन्म में भी कंट्रोल करते हैं, और हमारे जो कर्म है उस संस्कार के अनुसार अनुसार होते रहते हैं। इसलिए संस्कार शुद्धि आवश्यक है। और संस्कार शुद्ध करने का ये बड़ा अच्छा तरीका है, भगवत गीता का चिंतन मनन करना, ध्यान लगाना, धारणा करना, नामस्मरण करना, जप करना। इससे हमारे पुराने संस्कार जो गलत हो सकते हैं, वो धुलने लगते हैं। तो जब संस्कार धुलने लगते हैं, तो मन अच्छा होने लगता है। जब मन अच्छा होने लगता है, तो विचार अच्छे होने लगते हैं। विचार अच्छे होने लगता है, कर्म अच्छे होने लगते हैं, और कर्म अच्छे होने लगते हैं, जिंदगी सुधर जाती है।
लेकिन कहते हैं ना, संस्कार तो आपको परिवार से मिलते हैं, जैसा आप देखोगे वैसा ही फॉलो
परिवार से
करते
कुछ
हैं।
नहीं मिलता, सब हमारे मन से मिलता है। परिवार वगैरह सब हम अपने
जैसे एक
छठे अध्याय में
बच्चा कोई देखेगा वैसा ही करेगा ना, अपने परिवार में जैसा
नहीं
देखता
नहीं,
है वैसा ही करेगा।
हम बच्चा देखेगा ठीक है, लेकिन हमारा मन ही हमारा मित्र मित्र है, और हमारा मन ही हमारा शत्रु है।
अच्छा।
छठे अध्याय में श्लोक है कि यदि आपका मन आपको अच्छे विचार की तरफ ले जा रहा है, परमात्मा की तरफ ले जा रहा है, तो आपका मन आपका मित्र है। यदि आपका मन आपको द्वेष राग सिखाता है, तो आपका मन आपका शत्रु है। तो मित्र और शत्रु के बाहर नहीं है। आपको जो परिवार की या बाहर के लोगों की बात करें, वो मित्र और शत्रु नहीं है। उद्धरेदात्मनात्मान नात्मा नमो साधेत, आत्मा ही आत्मनो बंधुर, आत्मा ही रिपुर आत्मा। रिपु मतलब शत्रु। आपका मन आपका शत्रु भी हो सकता है, आपका मन आपका मित्र भी हो सकता है। ये
हम्म।
डिपेंड्स कि आप मन को किस तरह ले जा रहे हैं।
ओके। ओके।
ओके,
थैंक यू
एनी अदर
भैया।
क्वेश्चन प्लीज।
थैंक यू। थैंक
थैंक यू। एनी अदर क्वेश्चन प्लीज।
हाँ हाँ, 6 लोग हैं भैया। रेणु जी,
ओके,
रेणु जी अनम्यूट करिए भाई। दीदी प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ। भैया रेणु जी।
जी।
यस,
जय
कर्मा चीजेस
श्री
बर्थ राइट।
कृष्ण।
जय श्री कृष्ण।
जय श्री कृष्ण भैया।
जय श्री।
भैया मुझे एक तो ये पूछना है कि हम कहते हैं कि आत्मा हमारे शरीर में कहाँ रहती है?
हाँ, कोई भी स्कैन करो आप, एक्सरे करो, सोनोग्राफी करो, एमआरआई करो, चाहे जो स्कैन कर लो, आत्मा दिखेगी नहीं। क्योंकि आत्मा इतनी सूक्ष्म है कि वो दिखती नहीं है। हृदय दिखता है, ब्रेन दिखता है, आत्मा दिखती नहीं है।
हम्म।
लेकिन दिखती नहीं इसका मतलब वो नहीं है क्या? ऐसा है क्या? दिखती नहीं तो नहीं है। परमात्मा हमको दिखते नहीं है तो नहीं है क्या परमात्मा? वैसे ही आत्मा
नहीं।
है। आत्मा दिखती नहीं मतलब नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है। जब आत्मा शरीर छोड़ के जाती है, तो शरीर में कुछ हलचल करने की ताकत रहती है क्या?
नहीं तो
हमारे हाथ वैसे रहते हैं, कान वैसे रहते हैं, आंखें वैसे रहते हैं, नाक वैसे रहता है, जबान वैसी रहती है। उसको जो शक्ति देता है वो हमारा आत्मा है। जब वो छोड़ के जाता है तब ये शरीर होने के बाद भी किसी काम का नहीं है। लोग बोलते हैं इसको पहुंचा अभी जल्दी, घर में मत रखो इनको।
जी।
तो हमारे शरीर का अस्तित्व जो है वो हमारी आत्मा के कारण है। जब आत्मा शरीर छोड़ के जाती है तो शरीर का किसी काम का रहता नहीं है फिर तो।
तो ये
आत्मा दिखती
आत्मा
नहीं
मतलब
सबको।
पूरे शरीर में है, पूरे शरीर में
हाँ।
फैली हुई।
हाँ,
हम्म,
इस उंगली में है क्या? हाँ है। इस
हम्म,
कान में है क्या? हाँ है। सब शरीर में सब जगह आत्मा है, और कहीं पर भी नहीं है।
हम्म।
कहाँ पे छुपी है पता नहीं आपको, क्योंकि दिखती नहीं है ना। कोई भी स्कैन कर लो, अब दिखेगी नहीं आत्मा आपको, लेकिन है वो।
तो
हम जो
आत्मा
बात
और
कर रहे हैं
प्राण
अभी।
एक ही
हाँ,
चीज है, आत्मा और प्राण।
नहीं, प्राण
प्राण
अलग
निकल
चीज है।
गए, प्राण
प्राण
निकल
अलग।
गए किसी के।
हाँ, प्राण 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 इज समथिंग स्लाइटली डिफरेंट देन आत्मा। प्राण हमारा निकल जाता है, लेकिन आत्मा जो है वो आत्मा दूसरा शरीर धारण करता है, वो मरता नहीं है। प्राण छोड़ जाते हैं, लेकिन आत्मा जो है वो यही शरीर छोड़ने के बाद दूसरा शरीर धारण कर लेता है। उसको शरीर की कोई कमी नहीं होती उसके पास। उसके जो कर्म है उसके अनुसार उसको शरीर मिलते ही रहते हैं। परमात्मा की इच्छा ये है गीता में कि आप ये शरीर ढूंढना बंद करो, अभी आप मेरे से आके मिलो, मोक्ष प्राप्त करो। जब तक मोक्ष की प्राप्ति नहीं होती है तब तक आत्मा अनेक शरीर धारण करते रहता है जिंदगी भर, एक के बाद एक, एक के बाद एक के बाद एक। मोक्ष की प्राप्ति ये गीता की हमसे अपेक्षा है। जब तक वो होती नहीं है तब तक अनेकों शरीर धारण करने पड़ते हैं।
और भैया एक ये पूछना है कि जब कोई हमसे गंदी तरह बात का जवाब देता है, तो जब हमें हर्ट होता है, तो वो
हम्म।
किसको होता है, मन को, बुद्धि को, किसको प्रभाव पड़ता है? हम दुखी हो
नहीं,
जाते हैं जो।
नहीं, पहले तो आपके बुद्धि में विचार आता है कि ये क्या, सामने वाले ने क्या बोला, फिर वो मन में आता है। बुद्धि जो विचार बुद्धि में आते हैं वो मन में आता है। फिर मन को यदि लगता है तो वो किसी इंद्रियों को बोलेगा, जबान को बोलेगा जवाब दो
हम्म,
इसको, या हाथ को
हम्म।
बोलेगा इसको एक थप्पड़ लगाओ। तो ये मन जैसा आदेश देगा इंद्रियों को, उसके हिसाब से वो आपके आपसे कर्म होगा। लेकिन यदि आपका मन के ऊपर संयम है तो मन आपको बोलेगा कुछ मत करो। उसने गंदा बोला है, उसका मतलब आप भी गंदा बोलो, ये आवश्यक नहीं है, आप शांत रहिए। ऐसा भी सिखा सकता है यदि आपका मन के ऊपर संयम हो तो। इसलिए मन
बुद्धि का
और। हाँ।
बुद्धि इसका संयम हो मन पे।
हाँ।
बुद्धि मतलब मन को कंट्रोल कर ले
हाँ, तो मैंने कहा
कि
कि
तुम।
जड़ शरीर सबसे नीचे होता है। जड़ शरीर के ऊपर हमारे इंद्रिय, इंद्रिय के ऊपर मन, मन के ऊपर बुद्धि, और बुद्धि के ऊपर आत्मा।
जी। तो बुद्धि द्वारा मन को कंट्रोल कर ले हम
हाँ,
इमिडिएटली।
राइट।
और एक भैया ये कि रजोगुण को कम कैसे करें?
हाँ,
ले,
काम एष
लेकिन
क्रोध यश रजोगुण समुद्भवा, ऐसा गीता में कहा है कि जो काम और क्रोध है ये रजोगुण की देन है हमारे। काम एष क्रोध एष रजोगुण समुद्भवा, महाशनो महापापमा विद्येन में वैरिणम। ये हमारे बड़े शत्रु है, और आध्यात्मिक साधना में हमारे सबसे बड़ी शत्रु है, बड़ी बाधा डालने वाले हैं। अभी कहानी सुनाओ तो समय नहीं है अपने पास कहानी सुनाने का, लेकिन रजोगुण समाप्त करने का तरीका होता है। रजोगुण समाप्त ऐसे तो होता नहीं है। रजोगुण को समाप्त करना मतलब हमको सात्विक बनना है। सात्विक बनने का हमको गुणातीत बनना है, क्योंकि सात्विक गुण में हमको बंधन में डालता है। 14वें में आपने पढ़ा है गुणत्रय विभाग योग में कि सत्वगुण भी हमको बंधन में डालने वाला ही होता है। वो मोक्ष देता नहीं है सत्वगुण आपको। मोक्ष प्राप्त करने के लिए आपको गुणातीत होना पड़ता है, निर्गुण होना पड़ता है। जैसे परमात्मा है निर्गुण, जैसे निर्गुण बने तो आपको मोक्ष मिल सकता है। यदि सात्विक में लड़े अटके रहे तो फिर सात्विक ज्यादा से ज्यादा स्वर्ग की प्राप्ति होगी, लेकिन फिर से नहीं जाना पड़ेगा जन्म लेने के लिए। तो यदि मोक्ष प्राप्त चाहिए तो फिर गुणातीत होना पड़ता है, सत्वगुण भी छोड़ना पड़ेगा। तो जो यात्रा है वो ऐसी है कि तामस से रजो में जाने का है, रजो से सात्विक में जाने का है, और सात्विक के बाद निर्गुण होने का है, तो मोक्ष मिल सकता है। किसी भी गुण में अटक के पड़ना नहीं है। रजोगुण को समाप्त करने का सबसे अच्छा तरीका है आध्यात्मिक मनन चिंतन। हम जो अभी पढ़ रहे हैं, गीता पढ़ रहे हैं, गीता के बारे में चर्चा कर रहे हैं, हमारा रजोगुण हम शांत कर रहे हैं, हमारा सत्वगुण बढ़ा रहे हैं हम। तो जब ये साधना ज्यादा से ज्यादा हमें जीवन में आने लगेगी, अभी आज 40 मिनट है, कल 50 मिनट हो जाएगी, परसों 1 घंटा हो जाएगी, ऐसा करते करते जब मन में हमेशा सात्विक विचार आने लगते हैं तो रजोगुण कम होने लगता है, इच्छाएं कामनाएं कम होने लगेगी और परमात्मा की प्राप्ति की इच्छा जो सात्विक है वो बढ़ने लगेगी। तो रजोगुण समाप्त करने का ये सबसे आसान और सबसे बढ़िया तरीका है आध्यात्मिक ग्रंथों का पठन, मनन, चिंतन, सत्संग, नामस्मरण, जप। ओके, और कुछ सवाल है क्या? एनी अदर क्वेश्चन प्लीज?
नहीं जी, नहीं, बस भैया, धन्यवाद भैया। जय श्री।
धन्यवाद। जय श्री कृष्ण।
धनश्री, धनश्री जी अनम्यूट करिए। हाँ,
नमस्ते।
बोलिए।
जय जय श्री कृष्ण।
जय श्री
जय श्री
कृष्ण।
कृष्ण विकास दादा।
जय श्री कृष्ण।
बहुत ही अच्छा था आपका, इट वाज वेरी नाइस
Thank
द today's revision. So I had like couple of questions. For example, like so we had recently couple of instances where um, like medical decisions for loved ones, right? We had to take some difficult decisions. We don't know the outcomes of which will it be beneficial or not. And in the long run, only time will tell, right? So how do we detach ourselves from these kinds of decisions? Basically, it's kind of a selfless thing. It for ourselves, it's for our loved ones. So in a way, it's a karma yoga, but still you get attached to the outcomes. And it feels like sometimes destiny wants to have its way. Like, no matter what you do, how much you try, outcome will be, feels like outcome will be pre-decided and you just have no control over it, no matter how hard you try. So how do we stay calm and balanced in that kind of decision, where lots of stakes are attached, or maybe maybe it will just turn out fine, but how do we stay calm and balanced in that kind of scenario? Like, how do we detach ourselves from that outcome and our efforts into it?
Okay, I understand the question. See, the teachings of Gita is that Gita doesn't teach you, it doesn't teach you to give up the work, give up the karma, or give up taking decision. Decision, of course, you have to take. Without taking decision, you can't do anything. But Gita teaches us, don't claim the ownership of that decision. Don't claim the ownership of that karma. Kartutva bhiman, that you should drop. If you attach too much yourself to that karma that I have done this, then anxiety will increase, expectations will increase, peace of mind will get lost. Since you're talking about medical profession, let me give an example. A famous heart surgeon in Mangeshkar Hospital, it's a real story I'm telling you. He had conducted thousands of operations successfully, most of them. A day came when his own son was to be operated for heart. He did not do it himself. He referred it to another surgeon, a friend of his. Why? Because he was attached too much to his karma. That he had the feeling that, you see, when you are doing the operation, you are thinking, I'm doing the operation.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing the operation, if something goes wrong here and there, what will happen? The consequence will be disastrous. So when you are getting too much attached to your work, then what happens is you're losing the focus, you're losing the concentration in the work. But when you are doing the karma as an act of God only and as a seva, then without claiming the ownership of the karma, without any kartutva bhiman, then your mind, your conscience is clear. But when the attachments come in, then attachment disturbs the work, quality of work.
Yeah.
So decision must be taken. Decision cannot be avoided. But while taking decision and while performing the karma, detach yourself from the ownership of the karma. As I normally say, our karma has two poisonous teeth. One teeth is kartutva bhiman, maine kiya hai, I have done it. And second poisonous teeth is expectation of return reward.
Yeah.
If you remove this poisonous teeth of every karma that you do in your day-to-day life, you will follow karma yoga. Then you will become a karma yogi.
But how do we detach ourselves from that, right? I mean, we don't have this ahankar like you're saying, okay, maine kiya hai. We don't have it in kind of these kind of decisions, right? Medical decisions. Okay, we just want the best for our loved ones, or it could be anybody. We just want the best outcome. It's like, okay, we are not going to go claim to the whole world that, oh, I did this and I did that, and that's why he or she is like this, and having we don't want to do that, but you still want to have the right outcome, and it feels like it's just not possible, no matter how hard you try. In that case, how do we detach from that? Like, okay, we just resign ourselves to the destiny. Okay, we cannot just have our way when there is no free will in certain circumstances, right? No matter what karma you do, things are just meant to happen.
In Ramayana also it is said that you do your best. You do your best, but expect the worst. Don't expect that you have done your best, so the best only will happen.
Yeah.
What happens? See, Panchayatani Mahabaho Karana Nibodh में सांख्य कृतांते प्रोक्तानि सिद्धे सर्व कर्मणाम अधिष्ठानं तथा कर्ता करणे च पृथक विधम विविधाश्च पृथक चेष्टा दैवै चैवात्र पंचमम. In 18th adhyaya there is a slok saying that for any karma to happen, 5 things are essential. Adhishthan, the place of work. Karta, the one who does it. Adhishthan tha karta. Karani, what instrument, sadhan you use. Karani pruthak vidam, and different kind of tries. So many things are important. Now I think we have to close the sessions. Some other things are going to happen now. So if you have any questions, we can discuss in the next session. Sorry to cut it short, but I have received the message that I have to wind up now for some other engagements.
Yeah. So, today we have to end this session with the prayer. So, I would call upon, 1 second, for prayer. Yeah. Okay. Surendra Malik ji Bhaiya, he is going to recite the prayer. So, can I call upon him? Is he available there? Yeah, Bhaiya, please. Yeah, Bhaiya is a retired teacher from the Delhi Education Department, and he is doing the seva as a co-trainer. Bhaiya, please, let us submit today's Vibhajan at the lotus feet of Yogeshwara Krishna. Bhaiya, please. Yeah.
जय श्री कृष्ण सभी को. योगेशं सच्चिदानन्दं वासुदेवं व्रजप्रियं धर्म संस्थापकं वीरं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं श्रीकृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं. जय कृष्ण.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Thank you are most welcome to contact me after the session. Anytime you want, we can discuss this. Okay. Yeah. Conclude the session now.
Yeah. So today we are skipping Hanuman Chalisa also. So we'll meet next time. Till then, Jai Shri Krishna. Yeah, Didi, you may end the meeting, Didi.